Harris. I'm CTO of Union County Public Schools. Our school district is, we have 42,000 students, or actually our superintendent is Dr. Mary Ellis. So we have 53 schools, about 4,000 staff, and about 42,000 students. We're the 6th largest school district in North Carolina. And at the time of our Chromebook deployment, we were, I think, the 3rd largest in the United States and the largest in North Carolina. We've actually been in a one-on-one environment for about 5 years, and we decided to go with Chromebooks. A couple of things we needed to make sure that we paid attention to as we were preparing for our rollout. One of these things up here, technical support, mobile device manager, network, and hardware repair. This presentation is really about what we had to do to prepare for our rollout, things we had to do with our infrastructure, what it looked like prior to me coming, and what it looks like now. When I first started, we were already going into year 2 of our rollout for one-on-one. At that time, it was just in our middle schools. It was netbooks. We had, for our site links at the time were 5 megs from the elementary back to our site, and 15 megs at Kim. 15 meg for elementary. So, and we were already rolling out one-on-one, so you can imagine what our latency looked like, coming back to our data center and out to the internet. So it was needed some refresh. What we started doing is we looked at what we had in our schools, in our closets in our school, in our main data facility at Technology Services, and we saw that we needed to do some significant upgrades in our infrastructure. We started in the schools with using E-rate funds and some capital funds, and we basically gutted every school and redid everything. We have 6 schools that we're starting on this year. Yes. Sorry. We have 6 schools that we're starting this year, and I'm going to Ken Alexander speak to what we've done with our network, and Scott Jackman is here. He's going to talk about what we've done with professional development.
Hey, I'm Ken Alexander. I'm one of 3 network engineers at Union County Public Schools. On 27th, I'm going to talk about the networking side of deploying all these Chromebooks. Give you a little bit of background information of where we were, and then the numbers of where we are now. 5 years ago, I'm going to say, Tony was saying elementary had about 50 megabits per second for each school, and middle and high 100. Our internet pipe was probably around 500 megabits per second. It's been so long I can't actually remember, but I think it was around that. And that did work for us, for the most part. We had a couple laptop cards in the school, desktops, labs, stuff like that. So we start getting into the one-to-one, and we know we need to upgrade. So currently, at the elementary level, we have a gig going to each school, and at the middle and high, we've got 10 gig. Our internet pipe is now 2 gigabits per second. As of this year, when we rolled out all 23,000 Chromebooks, we're averaging around 900 megabits to 1.2 gig on the internet. So that gives you some ideas there. Switching and routing, 5 years ago, we had a mix of non-PoE, PoE switches, 100 meg, and had approximately 800 switches to manage between the 3 of us. Today, what Tony was saying, E-rate, race to the top, capital budget funds. Now we have every switch is PoE, every switch is a gig, and they're stackable, which is huge in managing wise. We've cut our managing 800 switches to like 400. So after we finish our last 5 or 6 locations of the refresh, we will have our oldest network will be like 4 years old. Just absolutely amazing. So networking wise, we are solid. Wireless. Putting in wireless in 52, 53 locations was not an easy task. Some of the decisions that we made were due to time, money, whatever the case may be. I had to do it all over again. Of course, there would be some changes that we would make. Right now, the way we have it, Aruba Control elementary level, we have in the grades 3 through 5, we have an access point in every classroom, and in the lower grades, every other classroom. One of the problems, our initial rollout, we bought access points that were just single band, single radio, 2.4. As we know, that's a very crowded band, and whenever the networks we bought, they would just have wireless cards of 2.4. So in some of our classrooms, we have pie-shaped classrooms. When we were installing the access points, we were in a hurry. We needed to get them up and going. So instead of doing new cable runs, we actually stole from ports in the wall, ran them up the wall, and then got them as far over on the ceiling as we could. That's not the best practice, and we need to get them into the middle of the classrooms. We still have some like that. We're working to get them in the proper placement. And the big problem with that too is because a lot of these classrooms are mirror images. Like you got one classroom here, and you got another classroom. They stole ports, and on one wall you had ports that went up here, access points here. On the other side of the wall, you got another access point. So lesson learned to spend a little time, a little money, and put them where they need to be. Definitely for laptops, our netbooks, like I said, were 2.4. Our Chromebooks have 2.4 and 5 gigahertz cards in them. That's huge because we can load balance between the two radios and stuff. That makes it a lot better performance. Let's see. When we first started with one-to-ones, we used a pre-shared key. That pre-shared key was quickly discovered, and then we started getting unwanted devices on our network. It was killing us. We had more unauthorized devices on our network than authorized devices. So we quickly, well not quickly, we decided to go to radius authentication. That was a slow process because communication to the schools, hey, we're taking away this pre-shared key. A lot of people didn't like that. A lot of people got used to having internet service. Wireless service. So when we went to the radius authentication, it cut our usage in half. It was incredible. So I highly recommend going in that direction. But with that being said, with the Chromebooks, we did go with the pre-shared key. The reason we did that is because time, number one, I didn't have time to figure out what's the best way to do radius authentication on Chromebooks. But the beauty of the Chromebooks is the fact that you have a management console, so you can change that pre-shared key anytime you need to. So we run reports and make sure the devices that need to be on that SSID are on that SSID. If we ever need to change it, that's not a problem. And then one thing I highly recommend is putting Chromebooks on their own VLANs. That helps in tracking, that helps with reporting, how much bandwidth are these Chromebooks using and stuff. Highly recommend that. With your Root controller, you can put whatever you want to do, devices in whatever VLAN you want to. So with that being said, some of the items that we have left, some mobile units. We need to put wireless mesh in our mobile units. We've already installed some of them, but elementary level, we still have to do that as well. Adding additional access points in the lower grades of the elementary, because we didn't anticipate moving our netbooks from the middle schools to the elementary. And when we initially installed access points, we decided that, okay, we need to fill in the holes for a better experience. Still have a few 2.4 access points in our environment. We're working to get those changed out. And last but not least, we will get the Chromebooks to radius authentication, because that really is the best way to go. Or I feel like it is. Just considering that have a little more control and stuff, and make sure that nobody has to get pre-shared key.
like some of the other considerations we had to make when we decided to go one-to-one, not just for Chromebooks, but just in general, was on-site filtering, home filtering, and concurrent connection and backlogs. Like I said, we were in a one-to-one environment already. We had roughly 13,000 devices that went home with the kids, they go home with the kids, and we want to make sure that we have to make sure that they're filtered when they take them home. So we use a Sophos appliance for our web filtering, and we have a back file on those devices. But the back file is also on the teachers' devices because they take theirs home as well. So we have our Sophos set up to work with Active Directory. So we have certain groups set up. So if administrators need to get to Facebook and we don't want kids to get to Facebook, it's all set up in a way that we have our policy set up in Active Directory. One of the issues that we had with the Chromebooks was they don't read pack files very well. So what we ended up doing is we have I believe 30 filters, and we have 30 filters because they're virtual appliances. So when we first started out, we had 11 filters, and they were all hardware appliances. And we saw that we were getting a lot of concurrent connections coming in, and we needed to spread the load. So we got with Sophos, we figured out a way that we were going to be able to spread that load and not have to buy 15 more appliances to stick in the data center and draw power. They came out with a virtual appliance. We run ESX. We have probably 15 or so virtual appliance over there. They're basically spreading the load. And what we've done is we've split our clusters. Clusters meaning the middle and the high schools are on the same campus, and we have them all report to one appliance to spread our load a little bit. Like Kim said, one of the other issues that we had when we first started out, and we never expected it to go as fast as it went. We were running networks, like I said, we were at a crossroads, and we needed to figure out how we were going to sustain our one-to-one program. The plan all along was go 612. We started out in the middle schools. They had netbooks. We were in Google Apps for only 2.5 years. So we were already familiar with the space of Google Apps, but we didn't know where we were going to go. The ninth graders was the next ones to get a one-to-one device, and it was a Lenovo X1. I don't know if you're familiar with the next one, but it's a high-end, kind of like an Ultrabook. We couldn't use those for everybody else. We would never be able to afford it. So we started looking at other options as that would allow us to continue our one-to-one model. And we actually just stopped calling it a one-to-one model. We call it an access model. We're just making sure that everybody has access, everybody has a device. And my job is to make sure that if we're throwing 20,000 devices at it or 100,000 devices, our infrastructure can handle whatever it is that we throw at it. So like Kim said, we made some changes. We have our own fiber ring. It's a self-healing fiber ring. If it's cut in one direction, it reverses direction. Now, if it's cut in two, which has been cut several times that way, we're kind of dead in the water. And of course we get blamed, and it's not us. We're trying to get people to understand it's like a utility, but I can't go out and fix the fiber. But we've run into that situation several times, luckily not during testing. So that's been done. We're 10 gig at the core in our data center. And like Kim said, between middle and high schools is 10 gig back to us, 1 gig at the elementary schools. AP density, I think Kim already touched that. There's plans to finish in the elementary schools. One of the things that she touched on briefly is because we're growing so fast in our district, we're having to move kids out to mobile units, and we don't have access out to mobile units, and we're trying to figure out, we figured out how to get them out there. We're putting like an invisible mesh network over there using Google controllers and access points and antennas. It's pretty complex in the way we have to set it up, and once it's set up, we've had situations where other trailers had to be there and they weren't up under the mesh, so we kind of have to go realign to get these up under the mesh. But it's worked out. It's not the same service as far as speed, but it's similar, and they can get on and do their work in the schools. This is our depot. We built it about 2 years ago. We knew we needed to figure out a way that we were going to support our devices ourselves, or at least have our contractors come in and help us maintain our services. So this used to be a child care center that we gutted. We turned it into a hardware depot where we do our own break fix. We're a self-maintainer with Lenovo. And this is the inside of our depot. So at the beginning of the presentation, I said we rolled out a large number of Chromebooks. That number was 22,597 devices. And we did it in 28 days. We had 15 people, 5 of our engineers, 5 of Scott's group, and we hired 5 interns from the schools. Why it was so seamless for us is, like I said, we have been working with us for 2.5 years. So we knew what we wanted, and we knew how we wanted to configure it as far as applications and professional development. I'll let Scott speak to what we did with, preparing our teachers to see what the students were going to get and how we moved on from there.
I'm Scott Jackman. I'm the head of instruction technology with the school system. So, all this back-end stuff is hugely important. It has to happen first, but we had to decide as a district, why go one-to-one? I mean, if you're just doing it because the neighboring county did it, you probably won't have a good goal ahead of you as far as what you're trying to do. Back in the 70s, when I was in high school, we had masonry, we had heating and air, we had trades in our schools. And we've gotten away from that in American education. Well, what technology allows us to do in the classroom is to set up an academy-based program in our high schools around the county, where each of those are not magnet schools, but they have a central area that a child can go study culinary arts. But then he can work through our learning management system through Moodle to take his core curriculum classes using the technology that we provide. So the onus for doing one-to-one in Union County Public Schools was really to create this academy-based approach to learning in the system. The other thing that we're up against is the state of North Carolina. By 2017, all textbooks will be digital in the state of North Carolina, and they're rapidly moving toward more and more testing online. This year's 5th graders will have to take a science test online. We're referring to the trailers and the mesh networks that we have to put over the trailers. Most school districts put their higher level elementary kids out in their mobile units rather than in the main building. They keep the kindergartners in there where they can watch them. So it's really important that you have the ability to test in those trailers, because you can't move the kids around constantly when you got to test them all on the same day. As far as professional development, we started small. You mentioned that we started in middle school with netbooks. I would not recommend trying to roll out 25,000 Chromebooks all at the same time to different grade levels to teachers who've had small amounts of professional development, especially with cloud computing. Most of them are familiar with Microsoft. All my files are on my thumb drive. They don't really get the connection between I can go to any device and here's my stuff. So 6th grade gives you a homogeneous group in most school districts, right? So if you want to roll out to just 6th grade teachers and 6th grade students, they're all in the same hall in their individual buildings. So it allows you to begin to look at scale, then go 6th and 7th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, and 9th, and then this summer when we put the Chromebooks in play and moved the netbooks down to our elementary schools, we already had kids that were coming up. Now my son's a 9th grader in high school, and he's been in the program 3 years now, and he shows his teacher how to use Google Apps for education and how they can share documents. So the kids have filtered up, and their knowledge has really helped the teachers explore what's going on in the classroom with the netbooks. We started a program called ITMT. It's an Instructional Technology Mentor Teacher Program, and we go through our buildings and we pick a teacher on every one of our secondary campuses that's a 6th grade teacher. And they go through 2 years of intense training, not just in their building. We pay for subs, they leave their building, they go to another middle school location, they walk the halls, they observe other teachers, they see what's hanging on the walls, they talk to the administrators, and that experience is huge because teachers get trapped in those same 4 walls and they don't get outside of that classroom very much. So the ability for us to have the curriculum folks come on board with us in technology and say, we'll pick up the thousands of dollars worth of substitutes so that you can get your teachers trained was huge. And we've seen those folks filter up. And now after 5 years, we've got 4 6th grade teachers on every hall. Some schools, that's half the staff of 6th grade teachers that have all been through that 2-year program. And we're continuing to do that up through high school. The switch to the Chromebook really for us was sort of a natural step because of Google Apps for Education. It's the crack that leads you to the device. And even now with our netbooks that run Windows OS that are down in our elementary schools, we refurbed all of those units over the summer. Tony's being modest. We rolled out close to 25,000 Chromebooks. We touched 50,000 units this summer because all of those netbooks had to be refurbed and go down into our elementary locations. But we run those a lot like a Chromebook. We put an icon down on the taskbar that launches their Google Drive, and we're beginning to teach those kindergartners up. This is how you do it. And when they get to the 6th grade, their teachers will be prepared. I like to say that we're still in an infant program with 5 years. And you really need to project out 8 to 10 years before you're going to have a mature program that's going to work. And by then, you're beginning to recycle and go back through and replace the things that you started with as far as your networking capabilities and your wireless capabilities. I'd like to think that we've been successful. We certainly pull it off on a daily basis. I'll end with saying my sister, I've been in education 24 years. My sister just retired with 30 years, and she retired in the face of technology, and I'm not very good with it, and I just don't want to do this anymore. So there are a lot of folks that are great classroom teachers that just don't buy into the level of technology. And in many ways, what we do with staff development, we just tell our folks, if it slows you down and the kids can't produce a better product, please put it away. Don't drive to work in the morning and think, how can I use the computers today? Because if you're doing that, you're not teaching correctly. If you think about your instructional outcome, what are my goals and what do my students need to achieve, if there's a way to use that device to make that happen, then we encourage them to use it. If not, we want them to leave it in the back. And if they're using it 2 days a week, that's 2/5 of the time. And eventually, most of them are using them for some activity in class almost every day. And Chromebooks have been great for us.
So, one of the major things that I wanted to make sure that we talked about, these are just pictures of the facility, what we did learn. So we built this facility, and obviously we're not engineers in the technology department because we made a curve. We did a box truck in there, so that's on that. So, and we used a leveler instead of a lift, so that was bad design on our part. But we worked with it, and it's worked well. Like I said, we're the Lenovo self-maintainers. To date, well, as of October 1st, we have made 32,231 repairing our own devices. They come into our depot, our engineers fix them. They're Lenovo certified and A+ certified. And we have 2 guys over there. That's the other thing. So we have 23,000 devices, Chromebook devices, and then we have all of our regular laptops and netbooks. We have 2 people that work in that depot right now. I'm way understaffed, and they're threatening to leave every day, but I'm trying to get more people in there. But those guys do a really good job. I did bring Chromebooks with me, but we chose the Lenovo Chromebook for a couple different reasons. Main reason is, when you're going to provision these devices, that box has an Ethernet port in it, and we can plug it in and provision the device in 3 or 4 minutes. The other device doesn't have an Ethernet port, so you have to connect wirelessly to connect. Let me just start provisioning your device. A neighboring district went with those, and in the middle of provisioning the device, it falls off the network, you have to start all over. So, it's what's your time worth? If you start working through that, you want to save $100 and go with this guy. Not to bash either one, but what's your time worth and what's support worth? That's a really rugged device, the Lenovo device is. And where we're running into issues isn't because the device is failing, it's because kids are carrying it by the screen, to show their friends stuff or, grab it in the hinges. And that has all the ports in it. It has, I think, 3 USB ports, VGA port, and an Ethernet port. So that's, the main reason why we went that direction. This is just a map of, the logistics of where we are, where we store the Chromebooks, in the back of one of our schools over here. So, really, the main messages I wanted to get across was, if you're looking at going to a one-to-one program, we've talked to several districts that, want to know how we completed our work we did. Like Scott said, there's 2 things for me that I think are very, very necessary. Professional development infrastructure. Our infrastructure, when we first started, we thought was good enough to roll out our networks, and we found out, like Kim said, single band radios and 15 meg connections in between the schools, that wasn't going to cut it. That meant that I'm getting nasty phone calls, man, I can't get on the internet because of all the latency. So we knew we had to do some things different. So we pulled back, we all gathered in the room and we figured out what it was that we needed to to do. Now, we didn't figure it out on our own. We called some of our vendors in, like for the wireless, Aruba came in with him, and we did heat maps of where we needed to place access points. You know, so it's not us guessing, it's us going off of best practices from whoever our vendor was. You know, we had RFPs go out for our WAN ring that we have. We had RFPs go out for our hardware that we're using in the schools. There wasn't a lot of, we're doing it this way because we think it's the best way. We did reach out to others that were doing it. Willie Scott went up and like go and visited their program, and you know, as comparison, I told you that our depot has 2 people running it. Their depot has 15 people, and we have larger numbers than they do. So we're in desperate need of help, and we're working on it. We'll get it done. But you know, there's a lot of things that go into planning a one-to-one environment and making sure that it's going to work. And you're going to make some mistakes. We made several of them. We've been fortunate enough to recover from them. And you know, Kim and her team, they're pretty awesome. Scott and his team is pretty awesome as well. So the other thing is buy-in. I mean, from top down, our superintendent has his vision. And the vision is anywhere, anytime learning, and we're going to make sure that we support that. And if you don't have buy-in from not just the superintendent, but from the other directors and other levels down under, you'll never pull it off because there's going to be a lot of infighting, people wanting, you know, well, I need this and I need that. You know, if everybody's on the same page and everybody understands what it is that you're trying to accomplish, you know, we'll get there a lot faster. But you know, infrastructure to me, like I said, is paramount. If you don't pay attention to your infrastructure, it will fall. I'm not sure if I have any more slides, but you know, like I said, the main message I wanted to get across is, you know, we need to talk to our stakeholders when we're doing an initiative like this. These are just some of the pictures, and they're probably killing me if they while I was showing you. But once again, we did 22,500. I said 28 days. It was actually 26 days. The average per day was 869. The most we had come out in a day was 1,400.
And that's what you look like after you've done 1,400 a day.
I think that was 1,400 a day. Once again, you know, we did it with 5 from my staff, 5 from Scott's staff, and then we hired 5 interns from the schools to help us. And the interns went so well that going forward every year, we're going to hire interns to help us do our refresh or whatever it is that we're doing in the summertime. And you know, I was kind of hoping that we would have backed up to Mr. Worf. I don't know if you guys were in here, but you know, the Google console is pretty awesome, honestly. You know, that's how we were able to do 28,000 or 23,000 in 28 days. Is that we had been in Google Apps for 2.5 years. We knew how to get around in there, and what we didn't know, I synced up with Mr. Worf, and you know, he showed us some things that is synced to our Active Directory. And device provisioning was fairly easy because we knew what we were doing, you know, with the help of them. Scott's group, as far as instructional goes, they looked at what we were using, legacy apps, things that were loaded on the machines, and looked at what was in the cloud. And they married the 2 of them. They had a comprehensive list that they wanted on those machines. They told us what those were. We pushed those out. You know, there were things, you know, there were applications out there that we used that don't work with the Chrome browser, but we were able to preload the Internet Explorer extension to every one of those devices, so they wouldn't skip a beat. So there were things like that that Scott's group was responsible for that we pushed out. Once again, this is where Kim was talking about where we pushed them to a certain SSID. We turned it off in incognito mode. A lot of the things that Mr. Worf was talking about. Skill group provision. Tech support. How we're set up, we have 26 engineers, 10 are in high schools, 10 are in elementary schools, and the other 6 support the elementary schools. So they actually run their own help desk in their schools. If something goes wrong, the kids take it to the help desk. If they can't fix it there, then it comes back over to the depot. But we try to have them be the first responders and work on things over there. And tech support, like Scott said, he has ITFs that support the schools as well. That's pretty much the presentation. I'll take questions if anybody has any.
I have a couple of questions. One is, in our school district, one of our challenges is competing with all the personally owned devices that come in. It may be too soon in your deployment. Do you anticipate that students are going to not bring their own devices in now and still get on your wireless, or they're going to use your Chromebooks because it's a little bit easier to use?
So we've been down that road as well. We started off thinking we were going to do BYOD and have them bring it in. There was there was certain reasons, and I'll let Scott speak to the equity portion of it. I'll call people I only bring your own disaster, because we didn't necessarily know what was coming into our network. One of the ways that we prevent it is we have an appliance called ClearPass. We can fingerprint the devices that are connected to our network and write policy based around whether or not we want them to connect. So we don't allow access of their personal devices. Now, I can't stop a smartphone from coming in and setting up a hotspot, but as far as our network goes, we can control what they connect.
So they don't connect with their own device to your guest wireless network or anything like that?
And we have rotating guest passwords that go out to the principals every week for when they have presentations that are coming in, and that changes every week, so kids can't jump on. Because like Kim said, what happened before is kids found out with when I first started there, I was over at one of the schools working with Kim, we were working on a networking issue, and I had my phone out, and I don't know what I was saying to Kim, but a kid walks by, he says, do you need to get on the wireless? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he gives me the password to get on the wireless. And at that point, I was like, you know what? It's time to put something in place. And that's where we started working with the ClearPass solution.
The other question I have is, are you going to eventually allow them to take Chromebooks home?
They do. They take them home now.
Okay.
They take them home now, and that's why we have the Sophos appliance stood up, and we force them through a pack house. So even if they're at Starbucks or they're at home or McDonald's or whatever, that's Wi-Fi, they're still coming back to our network, they authenticate, and they get the rules that we've put in place on our filters.
Okay.
So, but they do take them home.
What percentage are you seeing in terms of break for screens?
For the Chromebooks, right now, we roll out we finish in August, first week of August. I have about 150 that are in for screens. Yeah, about 150. Any other questions?
What was the price point between the Lenovo with the NIC versus the other Chromebook?
About $100. About $100. Now, the other additional piece that I don't know if I mentioned, and I don't know if Mr. Worth mentioned, if you're going to go with the Chromebook environment, there is an additional fee of anywhere from $25 to $35 for the client that actually goes on that device to manage it. But once that's on there, you can use that just the same way you would use SCCM or any other management device.
And not to sell Lenovo products, but school districts using the Samsung or versions like that are seeing anywhere from 40 to 60% screen rate.
Yeah, they are. It's really flimsy. I mean, you can see your finger. If you push through the back of the screen, it's not like I said, I don't want to sell Lenovo or bash Samsung or anybody else, but theirs is really rugged. It had been a Windows device before. They basically gutted it out to Google specs, took all the moving parts out of it, and it's basically launched no moving parts are in it. So it's pretty. And the other thing that we're looking at right now is Lenovo just came out with another tablet. It's an Android tablet, and the rumor on the street is I'll be able to manage that the same way I manage the Chromebooks, which will be huge for me because now I don't need to go out and buy a mobile device manager to manage an iPad or whatever, because I can do everything through a single pane glass and have the same experience. And so you can have this app, I'll turn off Wi-Fi, turn off camera. So now that's not Chrome, it's Android, but it's still good. So we're looking at that as well. Right now, I believe we have about 600 iPads down in elementary school for a program called In-Class, but those are
they're just teacher used, right, so that they can do those in-class assessments that are required by the state for third grade. We did have the benefit of, we had a Dell 2100 netbook in place when we went to middle school, and that's a pretty rugged device. So we were able to have the experience of learning from how the kids treat them, how many are going to come back in. We track the kids, they call them loopers. If the same kid's bringing us the device back 3 times, we got an issue, we sit him down. It's a discipline issue, just like if he's destroying property on campus. We send him to the office and work through that. But that's what led us to a more robust and rugged Chromebook chassis.
And can you go ahead and speak to the rollout now?
The rollout night? Yeah, each of our schools, what we do is we set up, and originally it was, Monroe High School's got a really high free and reduced lunch, Monroe Middle School free and reduced lunch population. It was great to see those families come out and get the first computer that family had ever And at that time, it was the Dell PC. And it was new and fancy, and my son was like, "Ooh, look at my new computer." And now he's been through it 3 years, and he gets his Chromebook, and he comes home to do his homework, and he wants to get on my PC. And I said, "Where's your Chromebook?" "Oh, it's in my bag." So the sort of the luster has worn off of it. And to be honest, that's a good thing for us, because it tells us that that's becoming part of the learning culture. It's no different than us issuing a textbook. But we do have our parents come in. We offer parental sessions where they go through internet safety, cyberbullying. We give them plenty of resources so that they know who to contact. And we do that at each of our locations when we give our devices out. They also, every child runs through a Moodle module. When they boot the Chromebook for the very first time, it walks them through a series of exercises where they have to look at a couple of videos, have to answer some questions, have to sign a few documents. And it's been pretty successful. You'll never have the whole community behind you, that's for sure, in anything technology. And you'll have a lot of folks say, "Why can't I bring my iPad or my MacBook Pro that I just bought for my child?" But that creates a serious equity issue, and it also creates an instructional nightmare for a teacher to have 5 or 6 different devices in the classroom. At that point, from an instructional standpoint, it just becomes a consumption device. Go look this up and write it down. Well, you can do that with a textbook. We'd far rather see them use the electronic device to produce something, to create something, rather than just go to this web page, read it, and then process that information in some way. By having a ubiquitous device that everybody has access to, you can say, this project is going to include X, Y, and Z. Here's a grading rubric, and everybody does has the same requirement put on.
Based on them being Windows devices prior, we hear 4 or 5 years out of the license, and we're anticipating that as well. And we'll move those, the plan is to move those down to the elementaries once the network starts to fall off. And then whatever device it may be, when we go to do the refresh, it may be a Chromebook or something that we've not heard of yet.
Have you done any forecasting in terms of how to sustain 1, 6, 7, 8, 10, and 10?
Well, so, also, I don't know if Scott mentioned it already, but so, as part of the rollout, there's also a technology use fee that we have. And they pay that, and we basically, that goes into our technology fund to help us sustain our model.
Tony, you mentioned earlier the Google Play for Education, the tablets, that rolled out, I think, 2 days ago.
Yes.
There is a YouTube video that you can go if you search for Google Play in Education that explains that process using the
Right.
Nexus 7 Android tablets.
Yeah,
So that's something brand new.
It is. It's something brand new, and it's something that until they let other people use, you can only use it on that Google tablet, the Nexus 7 or whatever it was that just came out. It's designed for kids, but it only works on that device right now. We are in talks with Lenovo because we're looking at another tablet to have us pilot that as well. Thanks for coming. Appreciate your time. We'll be around if you want to talk to us.